Well, happy game day morning, everyone. Out there in Eagles Nation, it is week 5 in the NFL, and the Eagles take on the Arizona Cardinals at home, a team that they're very familiar with. Seem to play them just about every year. Obviously, the Cardinals years ago were in the NFC East. They used to play the Eagles twice a year, and the Cardinals have always given the Eagles fits over the years. Even back in the day, it just never seems to matter record wise during the season when each team plays one another. They just, the Cardinals have just always been one of those bugaboo teams for the Eagles, and we all remember the 2008 NFC title game in Arizona where the Cardinals won and went to their first ever Super Bowl, where they lost a classic to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But the Cardinals over the years have always just been that team for the Eagles. It just seems that the Eagles play them just like I said, just about every year it seems, even though they're not in the same division anymore, I should say. And they've always been one of those teams, just one of those, teams that just never seems to matter who's on the team, never seems to matter what the situations are. They're just one of those bugaboo teams, and I've been in my lifetime to 4 Eagles Cardinals games at either the Vet or Lincoln Financial Field, and I've seen the Eagles win one of those games. So it just seems to be one of those things. But you know what? It's another season. The Eagles are off to a really good start, 3-1, and it feels a little different than last year's 3-1, doesn't it? And I say that because last year the Eagles were 3-0 to start the season. And after the bye week, they lost that heartbreak game in Detroit where Ryan Matthews fumbled the ball, late in the fourth quarter, and the Eagles go on to lose that game for their first loss. And then things just seemed to spiral after that. Well, obviously Carson Wentz was a rookie quarterback, and Doug Peterson, rookie head coach, and they had, they just, never seemed to recover for whatever reason when things started to spiral. But this year they're 3-1, and obviously they were 1-1 after 2 games. They won an emotional, crazy, last-second 61-yard field goal game in their home opener against the division rival Giants. And I understand that last week when they went to L.A. to play the Chargers, it was basically a home game with all those Eagle fans. Again, shout out to all the Eagle fans who were there in StubHub Center. Basically making that a home game for the Eagles. But that could have been, and you talk about the proverbial trap game, right? I mean, that certainly could have been. I mean, look, years past, the Eagles could have lost that game. Coming off a big emotional game, having to go to the West Coast, playing a team that hadn't won a game yet that season. I mean, how many times have we seen in the years past that ends up being a loss, right? Well, they didn't lose that game. They ended up winning, and they won that game by having the ball with 6 minutes and 44 seconds to go in the fourth quarter and finishing off the game on offense. And I did forget to give a game ball to the offensive line last week, and they certainly deserve one for me. Tremendous job. They had their best game of the season last week against the Chargers. Now, the Cardinals obviously have a little more of a, they bring a little more, weapons certainly on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, you talk about, Patrick Peterson and the Honey Badger in the secondary. And I know they don't have their leading pass rusher who's out with injury. I'm blanking on the name right now, but he is out. But Hassan Reddick, former Temple Tough, for his years in Temple, local guy, and grew up an Eagles fan, taking over that spot. And this is where I look for Zach Ertz to have a big game. Hassan Reddick can play linebacker or end. Now, he is good. He's a good player, and we all know here in Philly he had some really good years in Temple. First-round pick for the Cardinals. In Philadelphia at the draft. It was a great moment for him and his family and friends. In Temple, of course, Temple fans. But he is a rookie, and you can exploit that. And this is where I see Zach Ertz having a big game. Now, we know Zach Ertz has had a really good year so far, amongst the league leaders in receptions and yards, and for tight ends. And I think that he can have a really big game. When you talk about, possibility of Hassan Reddick having to go out and guard him, that could become a matchup nightmare for the Cardinals. Hassan Reddick is a good player. He's an athletic player. He can make plays, but he's also very raw in the NFL, and he hasn't gone up against a lot of NFL players. He's still kind of finding his way in his NFL career, coming in off, with the starter there being hurt. So I look for the Eagles to try to exploit that, and obviously, Zach Ertz has had a really good year so far, Pro Bowl caliber season so far, and I look for that to continue today. He's been the quarterback's best friend so far, besides the running game last week, and I look for them to have some matchup possibilities with Zach Ertz. Look, you don't want to tempt things too much with Patrick Peterson and Honey Badger deep. Now, not to say they won't, and I know Torrey Smith is off to a slow start, but he's still one of those crafty veterans with the pass interference calls. So look for the Eagles to try to take some shots downfield. But the fact is that this team isn't a great big play team right now downfield. So I look for them to continue to have success with the tight end and Zach Ertz and even Nelson Aguilar in the slot. Now I know the Honey Badger will be covering him, but there could still be opportunities there for Aguilar to have a nice game. And give him credit. He's had a good season so far. Coming off obviously, we all know, pretty bad season a year ago, but he's rebounded this year and has played pretty nice. He's played pretty nice so far through the 4 games. So I look for Zach Ertz to have a big game today, and I look for Nelson Aguilar to continue to make plays. And I'd love to see Alshon Jeffrey today. I know he scored his first touchdown of the season a week ago in the win against the Chargers, and they got off to such a good start in that game on that drive with the touchdown. But we need more out of Alshon and Torrey Smith. We certainly need more out of these guys. I mean, these were some of the the key free agent pickups this offseason, and we really haven't seen a lot of them. At times they've kind of disappeared. It's been a bit disappointing at times. I know it's early, but I'd still like to see a little more out of number 17 and number 82 today. It's going to be tough, obviously, going up against Peterson rather, and Matthew. But you gotta, you want to see more out of them. You do. Like I said, I think Zach Ertz is going to could have a big game today. The Cardinals are better against the run, certainly, than the Giants and the Chargers' defenses are. But you know what? One of the big reasons why this team won a week ago was they had that balance, and they were dominant. The offensive line was absolutely dominant last week. I mean, you didn't even hear the name of Joey Bosa or Ingram last week, 2 of the top, pass rushers in the league. Pass rush tandems, certainly in the league. And you didn't hear their names called last week very much at all. Dominant job by the offensive line. And you know what? The Cardinals, again, they are better against the run, but it doesn't mean you have to abandon it. And here's where the big test is going to be for Doug Peterson, right? Here's where the big test is. So going into this game that the Cardinals are pretty good against the run. They haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher in how many games or something like that, right? So they're pretty stout against the run. But the fact is, if this offensive line is going to be a dominant offensive line, if LeGarrette Blount and company are going to, be that are going to have that balance and be a very good running attack as they could be this season, you got to keep it going. Don't worry about the statistics. Don't get it. And I know this. I know the NFL has all turned into a statistics, game, and this team's better against this team's better against that, so this is what you got to do. Sometimes the old adage, keep it simple, stupid. The KISS adage, keep it simple, stupid. If the running game is working, if LeGarrette Blount is one of those backs that can wear down a defense as time goes on, I mean, Clement's looked really good so far. I think Smallwood might be out. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they may be without Smallwood today. But regardless, you have 2 really good backs, and in LeGarrette Blount and Clement. I know Clement's a rookie, but so far he's looked pretty good. And you have an offensive line that can impose their will on a defense. The old adage, let them eat. Let them eat. it might early on produce like 3 yards or 2 yards or whatever, but don't abandon it. Don't get away from the run, because you know what, the run is part of the reason. Having a balanced offense means you win the time of possession. And against the Cardinals team that, they are without David Johnson, and David Johnson last season, was what, 65% of their offense, running and receiving. That's a huge injury for them, but they still have weapons. We all know they still have that number 11, and Larry Fitzgerald, and he's had some nice games against the Eagles over his career. We know this. They have a very athletic receiving core, quick, very fast receiving core. This is an offense that can be a quick strike offense, but you know what? You win that time of possession, you're still gonna have a great chance to go to 4-1 at the end of the day. And one of the big reasons to do that, and by the way, you don't want to put the ball in the air too much with number 21 and 32 back there for the Cardinals. So the way to do that is you got to continue to try to run the ball, even if it's not working early, even in the first quarter or second quarter, if it's not, getting the results that you'd like, and even if some of the fans are booing, you still got to keep with it. You can't abandon it. And sometimes, we've noticed with Peterson that he abandons the run, and I know he's not the only coach that does this in a passing league. But when you abandon the run and you make yourself one-dimensional, that does two things. That opens things up for turnovers, and it makes your offense way too predictable. And and we've seen this in games. We've seen this with other teams when the run isn't working early and they keep with it. You know what happens in the third and fourth quarter when the defenses start getting a little tired? They start missing tackles, and all of a sudden here comes the run, right? So you got to keep balanced. And again, this is a big game for Doug Peterson because we want to see, if he kind of learns from his mistakes. And I think there's been times where he has. But, going into this game where you are going against a defense that's better against the run than the last two opponents, you want to see him continue to keep at it and not give up on it and not make, this offense just one-dimensional where the Cardinals with those Pro Bowlers in the secondary have chances of getting turnovers. If the Eagles can win the turnover battle today, they're going to win the game. Simple as that. Win the time of possession, win the turnover battle, you're going to win the game. You're going to go to 4-1 at home. The Cardinals offense, look, this is an offense. Look, a couple weeks ago we all said, the Giants' offensive line is horrible. How many sacks are the Eagles going to have? Well, the Eagles didn't have any sacks in that game. And give the Giants credit. They had a well-executed game plan of the quick slants and the quick hits. Now, obviously, it didn't produce points until late in the game, and then it kind of opened up to the big plays they made with Beckham Jr. and But I kind of harken back to the one play they made to give them the lead in the fourth quarter, which was the Shepard touchdown, and that was a slant. That was a simple slant route. Shepard catch and run. Well, obviously, the Cardinals are very quick. This receiving core is a very quick receiving core. And that touchdown that we saw to Shepard a couple weeks ago against the Giants, that's the type of touchdowns that, if this team doesn't get home, if this team, in the secondary, and we know we've given up some big plays last few weeks, but if this team, is not disciplined, that's the type of play that you can see the Cardinals make. I mean, you can see Larry Fitzgerald making that play. You can see some of their other receivers, very quick, young receivers, athletic receivers. This is a very good receiving core. And no disrespect to the Giants, but this could be the best receiving core the Eagles have seen all season so far. They're just really good. But here's the caveat. The Cardinals' offensive line is horrendous. I mean, they're worse than the Giants. Carson Palmer has been sacked, I believe, more than any other quarterback in the league. He's been hit, he's been hurried, he's been knocked down more than any other quarterback in the league, and he's a statue back there. But he is a veteran. And if you give him time and you give him an opportunity, he will pick you apart. But if you keep the pressure going and you keep the pedal down, you can get to him. And you can, disrupt, those patterns that they like to run. Now, here's the thing about trying to disrupt some of those patterns, and I know they're very, again, this is probably the fastest receiving core in the league, I would imagine. And I know it's hard to do this anymore, and I know with that speed you want to give the little space off the snap, but you got to bump these receivers. You got to be physical with them. And I know in this day's NFL you can't be overly physical at the snap, but you got to do anything you can to try to disrupt these timing patterns. And that's going to be key and crucial. Because if you could do that and you give Carson Palmer an extra, half second or whatever to try to make a decision, that means here comes the defense, which, oh, by the way, has still been, even without Fletcher Cox in the lineup the last week or so, has been still one of the most dominant defensive lines in the league. And this defense is number 2 ranked against the run behind Denver. So if you think about it, they're first in the NFC against the run. This has been a very, very solid defensive line and very solid defense so far overall, if you think about it, with how they've stopped the run. And that goes to the linebackers, too. Good play by them. The Cardinals, again, do not have a great running game. I mean, obviously, without Johnson, their Pro Bowl running back, out for the, how many weeks to come. In week 1, he got injured. Tough loss for them. But, they have, CJ 2K is still there. Who really hasn't been CJ 2K since the CJ 2K season those years ago in Tennessee. But he's, a veteran back, and they have some other backs there, kind of back by committee, if you will. So I don't believe the Cardinals are going to hurt the Eagles on the ground. Again, not a great offensive line, not a great run producing offensive line. So I do believe the Eagles will, again, like they've done in weeks past, take care of the run game. You don't want to overlook it, obviously. Again, hey, games like this, the defense can kind of fall asleep too. Say, the Cardinals aren't a good running team. And how many times have we seen it, right? In the Eagles Nation, a team, they're not a great running team. They come in and run for over 100 yards, right? So you want to stay at home and you want to be, cognizant of their run game. But I do believe the Eagles can, will stop the Cardinals' rushing attack and tee off against the pass, and that means put pressure on Palmer. And I know this isn't a big blitzing defense, and it might be dangerous to do it this week. It might be, because this is a very fast receiving core, and if you don't get home on a blitz and you miss on a blitz, it's going to be a big play the other way. But I would like to see Jim Schwartz blitz a little more in this game. I would, because you got to do anything you can. Even though Palmer is a veteran quarterback, he is known to be a giver. He is known to give the ball to the other team. So I really would love to see this team do a little more blitzing this week and get to the quarterback. Again, disrupt these patterns for the Cardinals. And if the Cardinals and look, this is not an offense that's going to try those quick hitters all day like the Giants did, and even the Chargers are trying to do. This is not that type of offense, even though they have Fitzgerald in the slot. And you do have to be careful with number 11 there. We know this. But this is not an offense that runs that way. Not to say that they won't try it, but it's just not something that they do. They're more of a down the field, we're going to hit you type offense instead of the let's just go zip, 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 quick slants, quick patterns. They might try it because, as the Giants did with their, porous offensive line, they kind of adjusted and they tried a lot of quick hitters and slants. The Chargers did it last week. So, life imitates art, right? So other teams are going to do it. And if they feel that that's the way to stop the Eagles' pass rush, they're going to try. And this is, again, where the safeties, I look for Jenkins. I mean, Malcolm, look, he's one of the defensive captains of this team. He's got to watch number 11. He has got to cover Larry Fitzgerald. It's a tough cover. It is. It's one of the toughest covers in the league. But he has got to do his due diligence and try to stop as best as you can. You can't stop him, but you can try to contain number 11, right? So yeah, try to bump these receivers off the line. Disrupt these patterns that they're going to try to make. And the Cardinals will try to exploit the secondary of this team. They will try to do those deep passes downfield. But how do you stop that? You got to get pressure on Carson Palmer. Statue. He is not mobile. He will not get away from the rush. So you got to get pressure, and I'd love to see this team get 5-6 sacks on this guy, a couple interceptions. It's doable. I mean, other teams have done it. Why not us, right? It's a home game. The fans are going to be there. They're going to be crazed, bringing noise. And by the way, Eagles Nation, be in full throat today. Be in full throat and disrupt the Cardinals' offense as best as you can. Those counts, maybe draw a couple off, false starts and whatnot. Anything that can be done to help is always appreciated. So, I know the Eagles Nation will be there in full throat today, and hopefully we're celebrating a win at the end. So that's my pregame thoughts. A tough game. I don't care about records. When we play the Cardinals, it's always going to be a tough game, and I look for this one to be, another one of those battles with the Birds, and but I do believe that the Eagles. I think they're playing really well right now. I like what they're doing. If Doug Peterson, Doug, if he can, even though the Cardinals again are pretty good against the run, but if Peterson can just keep that balance, and even if it's not working in the first half, keep going to it in the second half, because I believe it will be a close game, and I believe it's a game that this offensive line, again like they did last week, could win in the fourth quarter and wear down the Cardinal defense, and again get that big W. Let's get the 4-1. And then we have a big Thursday night game coming up, short week against the Panthers. And, let's go. I'm ready for it. As always, looking forward to the game. Let's go, Birds. And I'll see all of you after the game with, post-game talks. Post-game thoughts, I should say. Talks and thoughts from Mighty Fan. All right, everyone, enjoy the game. Let's get another victory. Let's have another victory to talk about after this one. All right, everyone. Let's go, Birds. Take care. Enjoy the game.